What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video. This time we're going to be going over the Stamina Nightblade. This build, like other builds, we're just going to start going over with gear, then we'll go over ability bars, and then CP distributions. The Stamina Nightblade is definitely one of the more difficult classes to master. Nightblades in general, both Stamina and Magicka, have very involved rotations, for lack of a better word. So do keep in mind that when you're practicing out your rotation, it does take a lot of practice, especially compared to the other 4 classes out there. So this is the Stamina Nightblade that I'm running right now. I have 5-piece Spriggans. You can buy this, it's relatively cheap. You can see there from the prices. You can buy most of the pieces for under 50k. If you don't have Spriggans though, you can run Night Mothers. Night Mothers is a crafted set, so it is much easier to obtain. You won't get as much physical penetration, just due to the, you can see there, you're getting about 1.4k difference in penetration. However, Night Mothers is very useful because it helps not just you, but everybody in your group. If you have extra stamina DPS, Night Mothers is the debuff will help out your fellow group members. For helm, I'm using 2-piece Veladreth, 1 medium, 1 heavy. Ideally, this should also be a medium set, medium shoulders, in order to get some extra weapon critical. However, I am using heavy at the moment because that's all I have in Divines. All the armor pieces should be in Divines, by the way. Infused is not suggested for stamina classes, unlike for Magicka classes. For jewelry, I am currently running 3-piece Vicious Ophidian, all of them with weapon damage enchants. You want Vicious Ophidian or War Machine as a Nightblade. Vicious Ophidian will get you that extra sustain. You can see the 5-piece reducing the cost of your stamina abilities and giving you stamina whenever you kill an enemy. So Vicious Ophidian is there for the sustain. War Machine is there for just extra damage, because the 5-piece will give you Major Slayer, which increases your damage done by, I believe it's 10% for 10 seconds. But either sets are fine. Right now I only have 3-piece Vicious Ophidian, which will give me that Minor Slayer, which is a 5% extra damage boost. For weapons, right now I'm using Lecky's. I have a Sharpened Lecky's Axe and Sharpie's Lecky's Dagger. You can replace the Crusher enchantment with a Disease enchantment, which is a Glyph of Foulness, for some extra damage if you'd like. If you don't want to use Lecky's, you can also use Shackle Breaker, which is a crafted set from Morrowind. And on the back bar I have a Sharpened VMA Bow. This is definitely best in slot. If you don't have a sharp VMA bow, you can just go with a random sharpened bow. For my ability bars here, first bar, Killer's Blade is our execute. Surprise Attack is our spammable. It's a lot cheaper than Flurry, and it also gives the enemy a major fracture. Deadly Cloak helps us with some damage mitigation there. Relentless Focus for the minor Berserk. And Mirage also for some extra survivability, giving us major evasion and our minor resistance buffs. Front bar is going to be Flawless Dawnbreaker. You're not going to be using this ultimate. This ultimate's just there for the 5% extra weapon damage. Your back bar is your bow bar. Caltrops, don't have this morphed, but you will morph this to Razor Caltrops. Poison Injection, Endless Hail, Rearming Trap, and Leeching Strikes. Leeching Strikes is here to help with sustain. You can actually replace Leeching Strikes with another ability if you so desire. It all depends on how you feel about your sustain. I like it there just for the extra sustain. And then your ultimate here is going to be Incapacitating Strike. This is the ultimate that you're going to be using. It deals some disease damage and also increases your damage done to the enemy by 20%. If you're using War Machine instead of VO, this is the ultimate you're definitely going to want to use. It's only 70 ultimate, and Nightblades have very high ultimate generation, so you will be getting that fairly large uptime on your Major Slayer bonuses. For champion points, 75 points into Mooncalf, 75 into Tenacity. In my opinion, it's not worth putting the extra 25 points to get that extra 1% increase. 75 is probably the what I would recommend. 64 is the 13% jump point. That'll give you an extra 22 CP to play around with, so play that by ear. I like 75 over 64. 31 into Warlord to reduce cost of break free, 29 into Tumbling to reduce cost of roll dodging. This just helps conserve our stamina, so we can use it for the most important task, which is stabbing the enemy. Our mage CPs, nothing in Apprentice, 34 into Master at Arms, 27 into Physical Weapon Expert. Quick note on direct damage. Direct damage is anything that deals all of its damage in one blow, so something like Endless Hail does not count because it is a damage over time effect. However, there are some abilities that deal damage with a single hit and then a damage over time effect. The single hit will be affected by Master at Arms, while the damage over time effect afterwards is not. A good example of this would be Rearming Trap. Our Ritual, this is where all of our CP points are going to be put into. I have 29 into Piercing, 43 into Mighty, 40 into Precise Strikes, and 37 into Thaumaturge. How many CP points you put into Piercing depends on your set. I have 29 right now, and that puts me just around the penetration cap. That penetration cap is around 18,000 physical penetration. So with Spriggans, two sharpened weapons, Major Fracture, and my Piercing CP points, I believe I'm about 16.5k, 17k penetration, so I'm not accounting for Alkosh debuff, I'm accounting for Crusher debuff, so that's kind of where I landed at the 29 CP points. If you're using Night Mother's Gaze, you might want to put some more points into here to make up that 1.4k difference compared to Spriggans. If you're using Twice Fanged Snake, you can put a little bit less because that gives you an extra 1,000 penetration compared to Spriggans. For our Warrior CP points, make sure to put points into Hardy and Elemental Defender first. There's currently a bug where if you don't put them into these two passes first, you actually end up losing some damage mitigation. 64 points into both of these, 37 into Thick Skin to reduce damage from dots, 44 into Ironclad, and I have 1 extra point into Medium Armor Focus. This is just because I didn't manage to hit a jump point. If I put this 1 extra point into Ironclad or any of the other 4, I actually don't hit a jump point. So I just put it in here just so I can get at least something out of my last CP point. One thing to note about this build, I actually don't have all the passives unlocked. If we go ahead and look at dual wields, you can see my dual wield is level 47, so I don't actually have 2 out of 2 for Twin Blade and Blunt. That's going to decrease my DPS by a small margin, not by much. So I believe I'm using an axe and a dagger, so I mean I'm not going to be losing that much in terms of weapon crit or the axe bleed. I'm also don't have the Undaunted passive. I don't have Undaunted Metal out, so I'm losing out on about 2% boost to stats once I have my medium shoulders. 4% if I stick with heavy. You see my stats there. This is with buy stat food. Pretty close to the 17k health recommended health for endgame trials. 34k stamina. It's kind of where you want to sit at. For this parse, I'm going to be using, like I said, buy stat food, and I'm also going to be using Essence of Weapon Power. This gives me my Major Brutality, my Major Savagery, as well as give me some extra stamina. You can see here I don't have the Alchemy passive, so I only have 40 seconds. When I have the full Alchemy passives, it'll the uptime on that is actually slightly over the potion cooldown, so you will have 100% uptime on Major Brutality, Major Savagery, and Major Endurance, as long as you keep your potions on cooldown. So we're going to go ahead and start our parse here. And we're going to start in 3, 2, and 1. there you have it. That's by parse right there. It's actually a new high for me. Gonna go into combat metrics now to kind of go over the parse, our buff uptimes and things like that. I highly recommend you download combat metrics. It's a very useful add-on if you are DPS. It kind of tells you what your buffed uptimes are, what your debuff uptimes are, and where your DPS is coming from. You can see here 31.6k DPS. Over here is where you will find your buff and debuffs uptime, buffs and debuffs out. So looking at our buffs right here, Minor Force is 79% uptime, Minor Berserk is 83. So this comes from our Unrelenting Focus, this comes from Rearming Trap. So you can see there, I do need to get some work on making sure my Rearming Trap is up a lot, and as well as my Unrelenting Focus. Deadly Cloak was only up 63% of the time, Leeching Strike 63%. These are all fairly poor uptimes. Kind of want to hit at least 85 on all of these where I can, especially on the Minor Force and Minor Berserk. These two are really going to help out our DPS. Looking at where our DPS is actually coming from, you can see here Endless Hail is making up 21% of our DPS. That's not that big of a surprise considering the VMA bow is a very, very powerful that just makes your Endless Hail incredibly strong. Surprise attack here, making up our next highest amount of our DPS, and then it just all goes down from there. Assassin's Scourge is the Unrelenting Focus proc. As you can see, it's pretty important to make sure to activate that whenever you can, 7.2%. On a perfect rotation, there you could probably proc this 3 times, but it is quite difficult to do so. You'll probably only get 2 procs out of each Unrelenting Focus. If you get, like I said, if you get your rotation perfectly spot on, you can probably get 3 procs out of it. Caltrops here is 6.2%. Once I get Razor Caltrops, this might jump up a little bit, but not by much. Not expecting to suddenly jump up 2k DPS just because I managed to morph Caltrops. See here also Poison Injection, that dot effect also deals a non-insignificant portion of our DPS, almost 10%. So you want to keep Poison Injection up at all times. If you look at our debuffs out, Poison Injection, 91% uptime. You want to shoot for at least 90%. 100% would obviously be ideal, but that's very difficult to shoot for. Major Fracture is also 90%, so pretty accurate. And then look at that, uptime on Rearming Trap could be a lot better. So that's it for this build video. Hope it helps. Don't forget to keep on practicing your rotation, particularly on a Stamina Nightblade build. Like I said in the beginning of this video, Nightblades have a fairly difficult rotation when compared to the other 4 classes. Hope this guide helps, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.